Hello friends, today in this video we will see public and private variables. So what is a public and private variables? So in case of public and private variables, so we can decide whether the variable is public or private on the basis of its place and the scope. The public variables are those variables that are defined in the class and can be accessed from anywhere in the program. That is, if you define any variable inside a class but outside the method, then that variable will be accessed anywhere in a program as well as outside the class definition also. Then that variable is called as a public variables. Second, private variables. So private variable are the variables defined in the class with a double score prefix. This is double underscore prefix. Then that variables are private. But these private variables are defined inside a method. These variables or the private variables has a limited scope. You can use these variables or the private variables within a class only. Within a class only or within a same class. You can't use that variables outside that class in which you have defined that variable. So on the basis of the scope and the accessibility, we decide the public and private variables. Again, public variables can be accessed anywhere in a program in the same class as well as in the another class or outside of the class, and private variables are only accessible within a same class. So we will see one example about it, that is public and private variables. So see the live example. Now here we define one class ABC. So we know that class is a keyword to create a class. Name of class is ABC. Colon indicates the start of class body, and we define here init function. Now self is a default parameter and we take var1 and var2, and we will pass the value as an argument when we call the function init. Now we know that how to call this init method. We know that to call the init method, there is no need of separate calling statement. It is called or it is executed automatically when the object is created. So obj, we create one object obj1, then equal to, what is the class name, A, B and C. So this is a object one of a ABC class. And how you can transfer the arguments to the var1 and var2? Yes, right. So you have to pass the arguments while creating the object, because when the object is created at that time, by default init method is initialized. That means it transfers the values to the init function without any calling statement. So I transfer here 10 and 40. Okay, so when this program is executed at that time, first this class will be created, inside that init method will be created, and then when the object is created of ABC class, so 10 will be transferred to var1 and 40 will be transferred to var2. Now here we have created the two variables self.var1, because this self.var1 is important. Self is a default parameter and this default parameter dot variable name. So we create this variable, and this variable we assign the value of var1. You can keep the different name also, because variables are user defined. You can give it any name. Self dot var2 equal to var2. Now you realize that. So we have seen that B, to create a private variables, we use double underscore as a prefix before that variable to make it private. So in this, the var2 variable is self dot double underscore var2 variable is a private variable. Now what is the existence of these private variables. Now suppose I have already explained. So this variable is a public variables. This variable is a public variables and this is a private variables. How? So we will see first. Now suppose if I print now self dot var1. So this variable is defined inside a class ABC, and if the variable is public, then it is accessible inside a class definition as well as outside a class definition. If I want to use self dot var1 outside the class, so we will try to print the self dot var1 variable. So what will happen? So I write here print public variable dash value of public variable. So write down here value of public variable. So here I will write, that is how we can write, with the help of object name. So obj1 dot var1 var1, right? So if you execute this program, what will happen? I save it and we will execute this program. Now see, I execute this program. So what will be the output? See, value of public variable is 10 because here 10 is passed to the variable var1 and this var1 is assigned to the self.var1 variable which is created inside the init method of class ABC. Clear? Now again we will see another example. Now we know that var1 is a public variable, right? And this var2 is a private variable. Why? Because it is created with the help of double underscore prefix before the variable name. Now if you try to access, so it obviously it will be accessible inside a class definition, but if you try to access this var2 variable outside a class definition, then what will happen? So we will see print the value of private variable. How you can print the variable? That obj, that means object name, obj1 dot var 2 double underscore var 2, right? Now if you execute this program, see what is the result. So I run this program again. Now see, there is an error. So attribute ABC object has no attribute and double underscore var2. Why? Because var2 is a private variables, and because of it is a private variable, it is not accessible outside a class definition. This variable has a limited scope. It is accessible only inside a class definition but not outside a class definition. But var1, this var1 variable is public variable, and this public variable can be accessible in a whole program. That means outside the class definition also. And that's why we this var1 is a public variable and double underscore var2 is a private variable. So depending on the types of variable, its scope is decided. Clear? Now again we will see another example. See, here we have created ABC, right? Class ABC TF init method. Now we know that init is a special method because it does not require any calling statement to execute. Now we will see another function, that is create another function, that is common function. So here we will create one display function. So for it we will see the live example. Now what I will do, so I will create another one function, right? So yes, indentation is very important because without indentation it will not give you the proper output. It will give you the error that is about the indentation. So here I create one, that is display method. So in this display method, so I use it here. Now again, def display, again with the help of def keyword we create a display, and self is a default parameter from colon body start of the function. Now print var1 equal to self dot var1. Now self dot var1 is created inside a init method, and we use this self dot var1 in the display method also, and self dot double underscore var2 is defined in init method, and again we use in another method, that is display. So now if I comment it, if I comment this statement, because var2 is a, that is private variable, right? Now suppose if I save it and run it, can you imagine what will be the output? Again, so this public var1 is a public variable which is used, which is created inside a init function and used in a display method, and var2 is a private variable which is created in init method and used in a display method, but not outside a class, right? So if I save it and run it, can you tell me the output? See, yes, output value of public variable is 10, right? Value of public variable is 10 because var1 is public and it can be accessed anywhere in a program. That means this public variable is accessible inside a class definition as well as outside the class definition also. So now I want to access this var2, right? Now here var1 is public and that's why you can use it anywhere in the display method also, right? But in case of var2 is a private variable, and private variable has a limited scope, right? So private variables can be accessible inside a class only, not outside a class. But var2 is again used in a display method. This is display is another method and init is another method. So these private variables are accessible only inside the class definition. That's why when you use this var2 variable, private variable display method, but display method is defined inside a class. That's why it does not give any error. But when you try to access this private variable outside a class definition, then obviously it will give the error because private variable scope are limited. It is not accessible outside the class. Okay, so if you run it now, it will gives you the error, right? So see about error, abc object has no attribute var2. Why? Because var2 is a private and it is inside a class definition. It can be used only inside a class definition. It is not accessible outside a class definition. So in this video, we have seen about the public and private variables.